I haven't done the air horn in a while. Let's go. Welcome to ThursdAI, everyone. For June 19th, my name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with weights and biases. And with me here, Stefan Wolfram Ravenwolf. Welcome.
Hello,
Wolfram,
everyone.
how are you?
I'm great. Been a pretty quiet week, actually, I think.
Yeah.
Not so much AI news, but still a lot of gems.
Yeah, still a lot to talk about as well. We have a full house there on Twitter and X Spaces. Welcome, everyone. If you're listening to the show on X Spaces, it's going to be awesome if you go to the bottom right of your X Space and give us a comment about what piqued your interest in AI this week. There's been a few big news that are not necessarily LLM related. We're going to keep talking about Zuck making waves and spending money. There's also a few interesting open source releases as well. We should definitely talk about those. There's this Andrei Karpathy, a very hot video going around about the next wave of software that we should definitely mention as well. There's been an interesting week for sure. Not as huge as previous weeks, but hey, that's all right. I haven't seen 1 week since we started doing this that didn't take us a whole 2 hours to discuss. So I think it's going to be interesting nonetheless. And also, we may have breaking news. We will see. Today on the show, we will start with the TLDR in a minute, but we also will have a guest with us around, I want to say in an hour or so. And today is also something else that I want to tell you that I'm going to do. I am going to try and do an experiment while doing the show. I'm going to try to transcribe all of it with the new ChatGPT transcribe feature that just launched. I'm assuming it didn't launch in Europe, in Germany, right? This sounds like very anti-European, the recording on your side without telling anyone.
I think that is another thing that may be delayed.
Yeah, so we will definitely talk about this, but ChatGPT just launched their meetings recorder, and it's running right now, so we'll see how well it transcribes, and we'll also talk about other transcription services as well. They just launched yesterday from Qt AI. With that said, Wolfram, how was your week?
Yeah, like I said, a bit quiet week. I have experimented a bit with some vision stuff, image generation models, and okay, there were a couple of new models. So there's still some exciting stuff here that I'm very happy that it came out.
Absolutely. And Wolfram, I want to do this one thing with you. Well, it's just you and me. Before the TLDR, would love to give you a chance to tell the folks who you are and how you ended up on ThursdAI. And give us like a 2-sentence presentation for folks who are new, who don't know who is the other guy who's talking.
Okay, so I got into AI stuff in the summer of 2022 when Stable Diffusion launched. And then the ChatGPT moment that showed me a passion of my childhood, AI, that it is a serious thing. So I did a lot of experiments locally because local AI and open source AI, that is where my heart is burns for. So I did a lot of experiments, posted a lot of stuff on Reddit, doing experiments with the models, comparisons, and so on. And that is how you interviewed me in an episode. And since then, I've been coming every week to the show and became a co-host over time, which I love doing. My work life, I'm working at Ellermind, a German AI startup in Bremen, which is working on a couple of things. And we are about to launch a solution for compliance checking of models and evaluations in that regard for German government and official stuff.
That's super, super cool. And very glad to have you here. From a co-host to a host next week. I'm on vacation, folks. I'm going to try to tune in, but I'm going to try to disconnect. And so Wolfram will step in next week as the host as well. So look forward to that. Definitely going to be awesome to have you there as well. Joining us, LDJ as well. LDJ, welcome. And just as you're joining, we're going to start with our TLDR. As always, folks, TLDR is a brief section where I just read out super quickly about everything that I already collected as the notes for the show. And this is a great opportunity for you to tell me, hey, you missed this one thing, because there's so much happening usually. Alrighty, folks, this is a TLDR. This is everything that we we'll discuss on ThursdAI, June 19th. First of all, your hosts and co-hosts here, Alex Volkov, AI Evangelist with Weights and Biases, Wolfram Ravenwolf, AI Evangelist also, and AI Validator with LMind. We have LDJ, and we will have Nistin joining us as well. Also, guests on the show today, we'll have Pankaj, the co-founder of Yupp, to talk about a new evaluation startup. He's going to join, and we're going to chat about their approach of telling us which model is the best. We will start the show, as always, with open source LLMs. We have a few releases. There are a few interesting releases. First of all, we have Moonshot AI release Kimi, the Kimi Dev 72 billion parameters, which takes the top spot, according to them, on Swebench Verified. We'll talk about this, and we'll talk about some feedback from the community and all hands about that position, top spot with an open source model. Also, MiniMax releases M1, a 456 billion parameter behemoth mixture of expert model. It's a reasoning model that they claim comes very close, if not beating DeepSeek R1, with significantly less training time, is what they claim. So we're going to cover MiniMax M1 as well. Haley also have voice models that we're going to discuss. It has 1 million context for reasoning, and they claim 80K output reasoning tokens, which is quite incredible. I believe we've seen smaller open source releases as well. Big companies were fairly quiet this week. Google released a new model, and so Google drops the experimental moniker from Gemini 2.5 and Gemini 2.5 Flash. They're now in GA, and we're going to talk about this. And they also gave us a new preview model called Flash Lite, which is extremely fast, but probably insignificantly cheaper, but also less performant. One highlight exciting thing for me is that OpenAI finally adds MCP support in ChatGPT. That's very cool. It's only for deep research right now, but I found it out and somebody sent me. By the way, a listener of ThursdAI sent me this via WhatsApp, so you're more than welcome to just send me updates via DMs. I'm going to be very happy, or just tag me under news. So OpenAI adds MCP support as they promised, and only for deep research for now, but it's going to be cool. We're going to cover this. We're going to tell you how to add your own MCP servers in there as well. OpenAI also launches their meetings recorder, which is a direct hit to startups like Otter.ai and different startups like this. And right now, this conversation is being recorded into ChatGPT, so we'll actually see at the end of the show how well this performs. Meeting recorder puts the whole context of our conversation within the chat interface as well. We have some updates in the top people in AI, and it looks like Zuck is on his spending spree. And this week's update is also crazy. After last week, we discussed the Meta acquisition of Scale AI, near acquisition of Scale AI, and the bringing of Alex Wang, the CEO and the youngest self-made billionaire ever, to the superintelligence team at Meta. It looks like Zuck is continuing. This week it was updated that he's considering bringing on Nat Friedman and Daniel Gross as the co-founder of SSI Inc. With Ilya. Nat Friedman and Daniel have been investing in multiple companies. Disclosure that they've invested with investors as well, and they've been investing in multiple companies. They have an incredible AI portfolio, and it looks like some interesting moves are happening in this regard. We're going to discuss this a little bit as well. I think that's mostly it from the big companies in LLM. So we're going to continue. And I want to continue to this week's buzz. Please stick around, because this week, actually yesterday, was our FullyConnected conference. And we've announced 3 new things. Since the CoreWeave acquisition, we've been looking to see what can we do together. And so I will tell you all about at least 2 of those. 2 of those updates are we're launching an Inference service. Yes, Inference service for the first time, and I'm going to tell you all about how to use this, which models. And we also launched something called online evaluations, supported by CoreWeave Inference as well. So online evaluations will run evaluations for you. You'll just have to define your LLM as a judge. Many folks tell me, hey, Alex, you keep mentioning this, but you don't explain how to actually use this. So I'll spend a few minutes in explaining to you how to do this. It was an insane week in the video generation area. We've seen VO3 come out at Google I/O, and since then basically control every viral aspect, especially because it generates audio. And since then, the folks have not been sleeping. ByteDance releases a new video model that supposedly beats VO3, at least on visuals. It's called CDance 1.0 Mini. It's already available, I think, on FAL and with Dreamina, which is their website. MiniMax, the same MiniMax from before, that decided to just go everywhere. So they have a reasoning model that comes close to R1, But now they also have Holia 02. Holia was previously the video model. It's a 1080p native generation with state-of-the-art instruction following, and it costs cheaper than VO3. Both of these models are topping VO3 on the artificial analysis benchmark. So when people just blindly react to videos, they don't take into account the sound generation. We'll talk about this, but definitely incredible week for video because two video models jump over the previously top one. And also, while not performing more than anybody else, but definitely a worthy candidate into the discussion, Midjourney launched their video product. Like we told you last week, Midjourney does not come close to any of the previous one. I think it's 480p native, but it's quite incredible because they keep that Midjourney style that many people love. If we have mutual folks who do video generation and want to hop on the show and talk to me about Midjourney stuff, you are more than welcome to DM me. I'll bring you up. We have some space today. Voice and audio, we have a breaking news entry just from yesterday. Qt.ai, the folks behind Mochi? Well,
Mochi.
I think this is the Japanese thing where they came from. Oh yeah, there's a correction. So back to voice and audio, Qt.ai, the folks behind Mochi, and Unmute.sh, which we talked about, a framework for real-time conversations. They're launching an open source, high throughput streaming speech-to-text models for real-time applications. So they're basically the thing that I'm just now doing with ChatGPT. They're launching a specific model. Remember Whisper? They're basically saying the bidding Whisper with Qt.ai STT, a new model, and I've tried it and it looks dope. It really is quick. The highlight there is the semantic VAD. We'll talk about semantic VAD. We've mentioned semantic VAD before, and we'll definitely talk about this. Nothing as far as I saw in AI art and diffusion, because there's not a lot of news elsewhere. I allowed myself to add a new section so that we'll be able to discuss papers potentially and different things that got released. They're not necessarily releases of products. We'll see if we get there. But basically, I wanted to highlight three things that I saw. I saw this first thing. I saw this paper called Live Code Bench Pro. So a release from Live Code Bench, which is a coding benchmark, with an incredible achievement on Live Code Bench Hard that all of the top LLMs get 0.0%. And I just wanted to highlight this because the researchers, they do love a new hill to climb. And when a new release like this comes out and there's like 0% on benchmarks, I think it's very interesting for researchers and very interesting for us to talk about.
In that chart, the interesting thing here is not for me that we see hard 0%, but that O4 Mini High is in the 1.5 percentile of all the people here. So if it's always how you frame it and how you look at it.
Yep. So we'll definitely discuss this. Very interesting. Like all the top models get zero score on something. It's very interesting. We haven't seen this before, I believe. There's another study from MIT that I would love to discuss. Very interesting. Just came out, I think, yesterday. MIT did a brain scan study that shows the frequent ChatGPT use experience. Folks who do use ChatGPT frequently experience a steep drop in neural connectivity and memory retention. There's a silver lining there, and there's also the study is not vast. I think it was only like 54 or 55 people, but still it's very interesting because for many folks the concern is, hey, we're going to use these tools, we're going to be dumber. Are we getting dumber? MIT study supposedly shows, based on brain scans, that at least for some things like memory retention, this is actually the case. Again, I haven't seen a meta study, but it's worth discussing. Andrei Karpathy famously kickstarted the AI at Tesla, was co-founded OpenAI, then went back to OpenAI for a while, and now he does, I don't know what he does, but he's still one top researcher. He had an incredible talk that's called Software, I believe, 3.0. The Dawn of English as a Programming Language. He had this talk at the day from YC, and everybody's very excited about this. I would obviously tell you go and watch this, but definitely worth covering at least a few highlights from this talk. We'll give a shout out to our friend Swix, who painstakingly reconstructed this talk from just posts on social media just a day before YC decided to speed up the release and just release the talk. But definitely the whole talk is here. We're going to give you a link as well. So Andrei Karpathy's very interesting talk. And then in tools, I think this is the last corner that we have. In tools, our friends from BrowserBase announced something very cool. It's called Director.ai. It's an agent to automate things with language. You basically type what you want, and they convert it into instructions for their agent to click on buttons. And then you can grab this and keep automating yourself. It's very interesting. We will chat with Pankaj, the CEO of Yupp, YUP, which is a new startup that just announced a huge kind of release and fundraise, which allows you to chat with 500 plus AI models for free. And based on this, they're going to build a leaderboard, and we may have another kind of IB source for knowing which models are best at what and why. So people will use this. They have an incentive system. We're going to talk with Pankaj. It's going to be very interesting. I already used it a little bit. And I don't know if it's worth mentioning or not mentioning, because you said whether or not it's a hallucination itself. We saw somebody posted a universal version of a system prompt for reduction of hallucination. And we're going to maybe mention this at some point. I think that's basically it on TLDR. Folks, I think it's time to get started with open source. Let's go. Open source AI, let's get it started. All right, we are back at our favorite corner, open source AI, and we actually have a few interesting releases. And I think we should start with Kimi. What do you guys think? It's definitely interesting. We've heard of Moonshot AI before, and I believe we've even mentioned Kimi before. And this time, Moonshot releases an open source model called Kimi Dev 72B. And I think the interesting thing that they've highlighted is it's specifically for software engineering tasks. It's achieving 60% on SweBench Verified. SweBench Verified is a coding task that basically takes actual software engineering tasks. We'll talk about actual ones once we get to that paper, Live Code Bench. But it actually takes tasks from GitHub, I believe, to complete them. You need to submit traces. You need to be verified by the team that does this. Very interesting. They're getting a 60% on SweBench Verified, I think, with no harness as well. And they claim to be the top between open source. As a reminder, at some point in the past, maybe 2 months ago, our CTO, Sean from Bits and Bytes, has got the top score and held it for, I think, a month with 64, I believe. Back then, he used the reasoning model, and that was, I want to say, '01. He did a lot of work to get there with a lot of traces and retrying and best of 5. There's a lot. If you're interested in this, the talk of him discussing how he actually did this is going to go live very soon. I'm going to talk about this and post this in a future episode. But this, I believe, is just the model, and it's an open source model, and it takes the top place between open source models. So it beats DeepSeek R1. DeepSeek R1 was around 53 or so. And this is the latest DeepSeek R1, the updated May 28th version. DeepSeek R1 from the actual DeepSeek got a little bit more, 45. So let me actually show this on the thing. Wolfram LDJ, any thoughts on this model? Have you seen this release? What's interesting to us in here to discuss?
Since it's a programming model, I'm not feeling qualified to say something about the programming quality. That's why we have these benchmarks. But I did test it locally in LM Studio, where I use the Anschluss version, GGUF. For some reason, it didn't speak German properly. So that is, I usually expect that from such a big model. But in this case, it didn't. That could be an issue with the quant or anything else besides that. They didn't give any recommended settings on the page. So I should have to blame it some more. But that was a bit of a bummer for me. Of course, that may not even apply to anyone who's using it for programming or just in English. Yeah. But just something I noticed, which surprised me.
I think they mentioned, thank you, Wolfram. I think they mentioned this, I'm reading from the Hugging Face, is optimized via large-scale reinforcement learning. It autonomously patches real repositories in Docker, gains rewards only when the entire test suite passes. This ensures correct and robust solutions aligning with real-world development standards. They are using RL in this very specific way. 72 billion parameters for many folks can just deploy this. And I think it's Moonshot AI has done multiple things. I see a lot of Chinese startups going with open source. Is very interesting. So we have some comments I love comments from the audience. Roger, thank you. Tested Kimi with the Qwen 2.572. Works for coding, but for writing on any other thing, it doesn't work very well. It does look like this model is optimized specifically for coding. We've seen a peak for downloads for this model. It's very interesting. So they're saying the tech report is coming soon. I believe that after the tech report comes, we'll have a few more things to announce or discuss in this model. Meanwhile, folks, in comments as well, feel free to tell us whether or not you've tested this model or if it's very interesting to you as well.
It's interesting. Seems like very specialized for coding, of course, whereas the R1 and V3, for example, are really big and they write very well. In this case, they apparently got better performance in coding with a much smaller model by just going more specialized.
Yeah, I will say there's one thing that I wanted to bring, and I think Nissan sent it as well. Nissan will join us in a minute. Folks from All Hands, which we had on the show, multiple folks from All Hands, did test this model, and they found some kind of inconsistencies with the SWE-bench kind of announcement. We should definitely at least mention this. When Kimi Dev released, they said that their open weights model that achieves a 60.4% SWE-bench verified, and that the Open Hands community tried it because they love open source models, and it didn't work that well with the Open Hands agent, and it only got 17% within the Open Hands model, 17 from the 60 that they've announced to 17. And so these folks went deep and tried to figure out like what's going on there. This is what they came up with. I think it's worth discussing, showing as well on stage. KimiDev is based on a fixed workflow. KimiDev is based on the fixed workflow of a bug fixer and a file editor, where the model is tasked with performing only these two tasks, bug fixer and file editor. Because of this, it can do these tasks well, but not great for other tasks. It's not great, for example, for writing, but I think we'll move on to the more interesting release from this week. It's going to be the MiniMax M1. I think there's a lot to talk about there. Let's move forward. MiniMax announces MiniMax M1, a 456 billion parameter MOE with 435 billion active parameters. It's a reasoning model, and it comes, I believe, very close to DeepSeek R1. Artificial analysis puts them, I think there's two models for outputs as well. They claim to be the largest context thinking model in open source. So 1 million tokens in the context window, but also they have two modes of 40K output and 80K output of tokens. LDJ, you said you've seen this model. What is your most important thing about this model? What stands out to you? What folks should know?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think I would say overall it's even better than the new R1 in my opinion, and it's smaller, a little bit smaller. The R1, it's around 680 billion parameters, if I remember correctly, in total parameters. This is a little bit smaller, around like 400.
456, yeah.
Yeah, less VRAM, a little bit more practical if you have one of those large VRAM like Mac Studios or Mac Minis. But then also in terms of agentic capabilities and agentic benchmarks, from what I've seen, it seems to be even competitive with like Claude 4 Opus and O3. And so in that sense, like it seems especially better than R1 in that aspect. And just overall, the fact that we have that in combination with these really long context capabilities and apparently very good resolution and quality of that context, and not just context for the sake of context.
Yeah,
that seems just really good.
Yeah, I think the thing you mentioned is not context for sake of just like saying context. I think we chatted about the ruler benchmark, for example. We chatted about MRCR, which is OpenAI's updated long context thing. This model delivers a 73.4 on MRCR and 61.5 on long bench. So this is like an optimized for long context model. Many models in long context, even though they announced this, like quickly taper off at some point of this long context being there. And this model seems significantly focused on delivering on this. I do believe that this is the highlighted open source from this week. Like this definitely feels like the main model release. OpenWeight's Apache 2 license. They also call this like a first large-scale hybrid attention reasoning model with multiple parameters. Native context, again, like one window, which is 8x larger than DeepSeek.
Yeah, and it's an architecture that's a bit different. For example, there are no GGUFs available yet, so I couldn't run it locally, but I did use it online, and yeah, it gave me a good impression.
Yep.
Even in German.
Did you try it on your MMLU Pro stuff?
No, I didn't run a benchmark on it yet.
Okay. So we need to make sure. They talk about novel RL algorithm. I want to talk about this for just a little bit because it seems that DeepSeek R1 brought kind of the renaissance for RL with the GRPO. And since then, multiple people tried to iterate on this and train multiple small models. They said that this is trained with a novel RL algorithm called CISPO. The clips important sampling weights, not token updates, and full RL training completed in 3 weeks on 520 H800 GPUs. H800, I believe, is the kind of the smaller version that's exported into China of the H100. This cost them $500,000, $534,000. Unprecedented training speed and cost effectiveness is what
that is just the fine tuning. So that's not the training of the model. That is just doing the reinforcement learning to get it to reason. But because we don't know what the actual cost of the model is. But I have to say, I did use the previous MiniMax model, which they supposed they had up to 10 million context length, but they were up to 4 million, sorry. It was pretty good. I always thought of this one as like the one that kind of flew under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
But the last MiniMax, I remember trying it. It was a big mixture of experts around this size too. It was pretty good. I'm not that surprised by this one. As for the reinforcement learning algorithms, they're still basically variations of the same group relative policy optimization, but it's not like it is that different. Yes, it isn't. You could say it's a novel algorithm, but it's not a whole lot different. You're just fixing the issues with the GRPO.
Yeah, but I think it's great that our DeepSeek released this and gave it to the world, and now folks are improving on this significantly, even like smaller models. We have a few benchmarks here. It doesn't beat like R1 in multiple things. I will say I was wrong before, so my bad. Let me correct myself. The 40K version and the 80K version, those are reasoning tokens and not output. Those are reasoning budgets and not output tokens, right? So it can but still, if it can output 80K reasoning tokens, it sounds like significantly better. So this is like the...
For reference for people, oh, holy cow, it got 87 on Zebra Logic. That is a very, we reviewed that benchmark. I think Sean Swix was here when we were talking about Zebra Logic like a year and a half ago. Yeah, for reference, Gemini has is configurable with up to a 32K reasoning budget. So yeah. Very, very interesting. I guess we'll wait until people make AWQ and GGUF weights, because this one is somewhat at like 400 billion parameter. That means at half size, you could get it to run on maybe 3 H100s or GPUs if you rent, or it'll run a lot better on, you can run it in fuller 8-bit, even on a Mac Ultra, Mac Studio with 512 gigs.
Yep. So I want to highlight like a few of the benches. LDJ, thank you for sending this link. And this is on GitHub, folks. They have the extended thinking task, and they just show like how many token budgets you can get the model to go at. So they are famously at like 80K is the maximum, the 80K version. There's like also 40K version. And they show DeepSeek R1 is like at 64K. The updated one, the previous one is 32K. And then they show at the end, OpenAI 03, which I really commend them by comparing themselves to 03. And they show something that I don't know if we have verified. They show 100K token budget for 03. I don't know if they can know this. I haven't seen this before reported. So that's very interesting. Do we have this kind of, not a confirmation, but maybe assumption from them that they think that 03 has 100K thinking token budget. And obviously, when you use the API version of 03, you don't get the number. You can only say high, medium, or low reasoning efforts. Very interesting. And what should we highlight here? We highlighted the long context versions, right? OpenAI's MRCR, and they have two versions of this highlighted here. MRCR for 128K context window and MRCR for 1 million context window. And we can see that these models get 56 and 58 on the 1 million. And the only one comparable to this is Gemini 2.5 Pro, because other models don't get to 1 million context window. And so they compare themselves, and very impressively, Gemini 2.5 Pro gets 58% on the MRCR 1 million, and they get 58 and 56 respectively. Very impressive from an open source model to offer 1 million token context window and also compete with Gemini, which has been like the leader in long context for a while. 2.5 Pro had 2 million tokens at some point. It's no longer there. There's no way for me, like we're sidestepping the open source a little bit. This is like a pet peeve of mine. There's no longer an option via Gemini to get 2 million context.
Was that actually happened at the 2.5 launch, which was only for Pro. 2.5 Flash had the the 2 million 2.5 Pro did not have. And I think Logan announced that they might add it, but they didn't. But it didn't have the 2.5 Pro version. The large one never had the 2 million one. The 2 and the ones before that did.
Yeah, so 2 did, but 2 is now deprecated. So you cannot like have Gemini 2.0 Pro. Flash only had 1 million. So right now, basically what I'm saying is we were able to have a reasoning model from Google think over 2 million context windows, and that's no longer the case. They deprecated that ability, and it's a bummer because sometimes our show here, just the transcription goes over, not the transcription, the video from YouTube. If we want the model to actually watch our video and kind of analyze, that goes over 1 million token. I would just say for reference, we don't say this often, but I remember the stat from a while ago. The whole series of Harry Potter books, all 7 books, is around 1.5 million tokens if you tokenize that text. It's a lot, folks, but when do you need this? You need this for multimodal, for example. All right, going back to M1, this is a reasoning model as well. I think there's interesting things for the reasoning model here. They talk about their methodology. I think we've covered this enough, folks. Definitely an interesting release from MiniMax. Apache 2 license, which we will not say no to. Incredible license as well. They compare themselves to Quen, for example. It's available on Hugging Face. They do have a paper. The paper is focusing on scaling test time compute with lightning attention. So a lot of authors as well. So if you're interested in some of the methodology behind this, welcome to read this as well. They have a hybrid mixture of experts combined with lightning attention mechanism. That's the highlight there.
Great release. I applaud them definitely. Yeah. And it's one of those which will matter even more later when we get more widespread support, because you can't just run it right now in, for example, LM Studio. So as soon as they get more widespread and quantized and available, then I think a lot more people will talk about this.
Yep. And I think we have a confirmation from the audience as well that we don't know when or if we'll get Llama CPP support, because the last MiniMax didn't get support. But if it's important enough to the community and like people request this and people open up PRs, I think we could get this. I think that's it from open source, folks. Anything else we should cover in open source that's important that we should mention?
Yeah. But we don't cover datasets very often, I think.
That's true. Alrighty, so we're moving forward, and this is it in open source. We are moving forward to big companies and APIs, although not tons of things happen there. Definitely worth. All right, we already mentioned Gemini in this conversation. Let's talk about the Gemini kind of like updates. Gemini this week gave us an update that finally, not a model update, but to some extent a model update as well. They gave an update this week that Google drops Gemini experimental or preview from the 2.5 Pro and 2.5 Flash, and those models are now in GA, in general availability. We chatted with Logan about this, of how they consider a model in GA, whether or not something is in preview or not preview. So the model that was announced on stage 2 weeks ago on stage at the engineer, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, right? This is the model now that's in general availability. It's super cool. So you can now use this on production. Google is actually showing you that, hey, we're ready for you to take this model all the way. In addition to this, so nothing else changed there as far as I'm aware. Those are the same models with the same pricing, but we did get a new model, which is worth talking about.
Not exactly the same pricing, by the way.
Yeah, you're right.
Put it down. So it was 30 cent. It is now at 30 cent, and it was 15 cent per million input tokens. But they reduced the output token price, so it's now 250 per million output instead of 350.
Interesting games they're playing. It was 15 cents, and now it's 30 cents per 1 million input tokens.
It's still cheap, and now we also have the new model, which is even cheaper.
I think they removed the whole pricing up until 128K context and then pricing after. Remember, they had this at some point. They priced the tokens differently if you go up to 128K. Now it looks like they removed this. So now the charging and the pricing is unified. So Gemini 2.5 Pro, $1.25. Oh, no, they have this on the Pro. Look, they just improved it to 200K tokens. The pricing is unified and simplified for the smaller models. It's complex here. Performance, humanity's last exam, Gemini 2.5 Pro obviously gets 21%. I really find it really funny that the folks released an eval benchmark called it humanity's last exam, as though this is going to be like the last thing. And then I think when they released it, everybody was around like 5%. And then the newer models just like absolutely crushed it on this last exam thing. Obviously, Gemini 2.5 Pro is incredibly performant on all of the evals, like GPK Diamond at 86%. Crushes AI Me 2025 at Math at 88%. Gemini 2.5 Pro, if you can afford it, is an incredible model. $10 for output from 1 million tokens, $15 if you pass 200,000 tokens in output, which is how. But then we also now have a new Gemini model, a new tiny model, probably distilled to oblivion. It's called Gemini Flash Lite. And I think that one is still in preview, I believe. So this model is like a preview model, and it has this very low price point of just 10 cents for million tokens on input and 40 cents on output. It's not the best at the different performance thing, but it is a reasoning model, a very tiny and small reasoning model. I think the highlight there is it's still very impressive GPK performance, 66% of GPK for a tiny model. It does math relatively well. Live code bench at 34. So it's not like, the world's top intelligence, but at this price point, you can just throw anything at it, like translation tasks, and it's incredible. The thing is that they highlighted, Mr. Sabes pointed this out in the video. This flashlight model is upwards of 400 tokens per second. So they actually showed demos of it building interfaces, and interfaces just appear. Now, if you guys remember, we covered all of the super fast LPU and different chips specified for models like Grok and Cerebrus and all those. So we've seen models, open source models, go upwards of 1,000 tokens per second, maybe 1,500 tokens per second. We've seen this. It's hard to impress us with 400 tokens per second. But when it's this high quality, it's not open source, there could be an interesting use case for many people. It's also from Google. If your company has a lot of API credits, for example, and you're beholden to Google, this is a model that's interesting. A lot of use cases for super fast models.
For me right now, it is actually the biggest release of the week because I'm using it already in production in a way on my Home Assistant system.
Oh, wow.
And it doesn't support tool calling, but it works with Home Assistant, and it's blazing fast. So the latency has been reduced when I give a command and the house reacts. So, and it's much cheaper even than the previous Flash. So it is a really good release. And I chatted with it as well. And even its writing is very good, surprisingly good for a probably very quantized model. Yeah, creative writing is great. And even its German is very good. So even if it's the smallest model from Google, they really rocked it with this release.
Yeah, this is quite crazy. They have Flashlight beats. What is this? Flashlight 2.5. Okay, so 2.5, we had Flash before. So the interesting, the Flashlight 2.5 beats Flash 2.0 on multiple tasks, right? It's getting unwieldy to hold all these version numbers in our heads, but the new Flashlight model beats the previous Flash 0 on coding, math, and reasoning. It's also hybrid reasoning, so you can provide it with a budgeted chain of thought. And yeah, it's...
Wait, is it 10 cents in, 40 cents out?
Yes.
On the price?
Yeah.
Okay, that is not that cheap. It's about, with the 4.1 mini touch, the price. It is pretty cheap, but it's not like that cheap that you could constantly just feed 1 million tokens. But at the end of the day, most of the models are getting good enough now for tasks. Like the only task that we really judge for is like high level automation and coding. So we don't have to deal with a lot of the stuff. But for almost everything else, like home automation that Wolfram was saying, they're getting, even the OSS ones are actually getting good enough that you really can't tell a whole lot. So yeah, we're in an interesting time now. Because I think for something like home automation, would you even be able to tell if it was 2.5 Pro or Flashlight, if it's only replying with the status of the home or something? It'd probably be really close.
Yeah, it was difficult before when I was using the older 2.0 models because Flash then was not as good. because it still has to understand which light I meant and what is happening in the house. So it is not as simple as it may seem. It's not just a turn on the light in the kitchen. It's more, okay, now turn on the light here and there, and the light has a different name. So it has to think a little bit. And I think with the small one here right now, the cheap one, you could use thinking all the time because it's cheap and it is not taking too long because it's so fast. It outputs so many tokens. So why not let it think, and you get a boost in its intelligence as well.
I think this is the highlight, right? This is a reasoning model that runs at 400 tokens per second. So even the thinking process of it, you can turn it on all the way because it's also very cheap on the output, like 40 cents or something. And you can just, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So you can feed it your videos and your audios and stuff at 1 million. Okay.
I think that this is like only Google, stuff only Google can do. Even though OpenAI did drop the price of mini models, I don't think they're like as close to the speed here. The speed is very impressive. I think that's it on these models, I think. And we will invite Yam, who just joined us, to see if Yam has any comments on the Gemini expansion of models. But if not, we'll move on.
Just it's pretty new. The pace is amazing. We got Gemini 2 weeks ago. And now we get another Gemini. And the way it goes, I see another Gemini in 2 weeks. That's my prediction. 2-3 weeks, something like that. And
yeah, you were saying that they've been training a new model.
Yeah, you can see on LM Arena on the web tab the pretty much experiments from all the big labs of models that they are testing them there as final testing before releasing them. These are finalized models. So you can basically just ask them. They are finalized like you are going to get in a chat. So you can just ask the model, who are you? And it's going to simply answer to you, I am ChatGPT trained by OpenAI, I am Gemini trained by Google. So this is how we know which models are which. But you can see the final testing on LM Arena web tab. And yeah, there are quite a lot of Geminis in there, you can say.
I'm sure they're testing multiple models, including like maybe one specified ones. They have a bunch of like specific Gemini models as well. One thing that I don't have here, also from Google, I think it was a report from yesterday. Google AI mode, I think, is live now, so you can actually talk to it. I need to go and find you guys this week, but Google launched, and they've announced this on Google I/O, and now they released it. You can do search live. So you can now search and talk to the search results as you go. So I think it's pretty cool. Folks, let's move on to OpenAI. There's a few updates from this company, besides the fact that they've launched a podcast now, and the first episode was with Sam Altman. It looks like Sam was like all over the place doing media and preparing for some stuff, including saying that the open source that they said beginning of summer is gonna be delayed a little bit by sometime during the summer. So we're still waiting for the open source. They keep asking him questions about the open source models, and I think they keep delaying this to see what we're gonna get. OpenAI though promised us MCP support a while ago. It's already supported via the SDK with the Responses SDK, and now we will have we're now adding MCP support inside ChatGPT. And I actually kind of want to show you how this looks, maybe if I'm able to. I'll show you in a second. I'm going to use my new browser called Dia, which I talked to you about as well, and to show you how this kind of looks. Let's go here. We'll close this guy. So basically, you go to settings, and then you go to, you guys don't see my screen. ID folks. You go to settings and you go to connectors, and in connectors, you guys remember we talked about now there's Gmail in here, which you can connect. And I think last week I connected, and it's really, really cool. You can ask for your own psychological profile based on your emails. And then there's all these like ready connectors. You connect to the Google Calendar, ask it about my meetings for today, etc., or think about who did I not respond, whatever. Teams you can connect. But now there's a create button here on the right, and if you hit this create button, you'll basically get this new connector interface, and you can add an MCP server URL, and you can choose which authentication, none, which some MCP servers give you like, it's not best practice, but somebody like Zapier, for example, they expose 2 URLs for you. One of them is with auth, and one of them, the kind of the URL is secret. So if you use that URL, there's going to be a unique pre-authenticated URL for your use case. So that's how the authentication part. And the other one is OAuth. So they have OAuth support, and you basically need to tell, I trust this application. because they say this beta is intended for developer use only. Now, if you read the guide, the thing that I wanted to highlight is this is only for deep research. It's not like the MCP support for, let's say, Chorus. Chorus has tools that you can see, and then like all these MCPs connections that you can create, including the We1DB one that I told you about, they're existing within the part of the interface. In ChatGPT, this is only for a specific deep research purpose. And only you have to adhere to a specific, like your MCP has to be exposing a search tool and a fetch tool. Now, those are fairly generic, right? So these tools, you can basically say fetch any type of information that you want from your tooling, right? So technically, anybody can build like an MCP server for deep research, fairly generic, but it only works in deep research, doesn't work in chats. But I think still it's super, super cool that we're getting from the hype of MCP that we talked about back in March, Wolfram, with Dina from Cloudflare
minds
and
were
Jason.
blown.
It's blown to the point where like the most major AI tool that more than, I think Sam mentioned, 500 million people use every week, now has support for this protocol from a competing company.
Yeah, but only read-only support, which is actually probably a good idea because with most other systems, you don't have the same problem that you would have with ChatGPT, where if you have the memories enabled, and now imagine you get an injection that uses an MCP to extract all the memory from you and send it to an external part or something like that. ChatGPT is getting so much information from us that the security aspects are even more critical in regard to that than just a chat tool.
100%.
That sounded like the most sci-fi saying ever. This thing came in, extracted all your memories, and just ran away on its own.
Imagine that, Wolfram, I think you're right. Imagine that you have a connector to the Gmail of yourself, right? Maybe read-only, but still, you have a connector to Gmail, you have a connector to your calendar. And now MCP, you connect this rogue MCP that looks legit. We will recommend to folks, please use MCP very carefully. Very similar to Chrome extensions. When you install something, somebody can update it from behind the scenes. So if you use the GitHub one, don't use like the open source hosted version of anybody else. Use the GitHub one. If you use the original MCP servers of the companies that they post, because again, like there could be like different injection stuff, even though it's read only, there could be some problems going on. MCP basically lets your chatbot have tools, but those tools are like, essentially can like prompt inject as well. There's a bunch of security implications. OpenAI is definitely highlighting the fact that you know what you're doing if you're doing this. So definitely be careful when you just like add MCP servers.
Even if you use the official, for example, GitHub or email MCPs, there was an exploit where there was a bug ticket issue opened on GitHub, and the MCP just overwrote the command and it extracted information. So you could imagine a rogue mail, like a phishing mail that is targeted at your AI and that is supposed to give your information out. Yeah, we will have to deal with these things in the future, in the near future.
We first need to know about them, right? And the feeling of overwhelm, that's, I think, the feeling that older generation may feel about technology. We should resist. This will be a new vector of attack that we will need to deal with, and we should be at least knowing about this, right? Prompt injection exists right now, and prompt injection, the models get continuously more improved with the prompt injection attacks and techniques. We've seen this in the OpenAI operator, for example, because it reads the web. You technically could see a website that says, hey, if this is an AI, do this nefarious thing. Operator specifically told us about preventions from these prompt injection attacks. But yes, you're right. If you're adding MCP tooling to your agent, let's say email that it reads, a new attack vector opens up, or somebody can send you a prompt injection email. And I think that the next thing we'll cover actually discusses this. One of the papers that we're going to discuss, the one that supposedly using ChatGPT reduces brain activity, they have encoded some gotchas in the paper that didn't show up in the paper, but only showed up if you ask an AI to summarize the paper. This is a very interesting thing. So we're going to talk about this. All right, so this is ChatGPT. The other thing in ChatGPT, I will show you right now. This is super cool. You guys see this little thingy that pops up? This is a recorder, and now we're at 59 minutes and 39 seconds. We are now transcribing this meeting.
This is embedded into the UI of ChatGPT?
Yes, this is now in the desktop.
Useful.
Yeah. So what this is for folks who are only listening and not seeing, you're on ThursdAI. We are transcribing this meeting, including the system audio that comes from my friends and co-hosts, including my audio from my microphone, including anything that happens, directly into ChatGPT. So they have released within the ChatGPT app a recorder transcriber that after you hit start, it will transcribe everything that everybody says, and then it doesn't connect to Zoom directly like other tools like Fireflies, for example, but definitely works.
Oh, there are plenty of them. But what I want to ask is, I'm using a lot, many times, ChatGPT's transcription just for the transcription because it's so good. Are there any limitations that we know about on this? Because it's important.
That's what we're testing right now.
Okay.
Supposedly, they shouldn't limit you.
Even if they do limit you and they say, I don't know, in the terms, it's going to, for example, just transcribe 1 hour. It's fine. I just want to know what the limitations are.
Yeah. So I haven't seen the documentation for this. I will say it will be very much a bummer if at the end of the 2 hours, you'll say, I can only transcribe for 1 hour. So we'll definitely test this. So folks, as you may need to start telling people, some of us are in California, for example. California is a one-party consent state in the US where you have to tell the other party you're recording, hey, I'm recording you. The other party has to consent or at least hear that you're recording so that they can drop and they don't want to be recorded. Denver, Colorado is one-party consent, so I can record you because I consented to the recording, so I don't have to get your permission. I don't know the laws in Europe. I'm assuming the laws are way more strict in what you can do with recording. So
the question is if you're recording someone from Europe.
Which jurisdiction you're going to be in. Yeah. That's true. I think it's a very interesting step from ChatGPT, right? Because many people dump recordings into ChatGPT anyway. I told you about the connection that I did via Zapier, where I do record with a different software called Fireflies, and then I have a webhook that connects and sends all those transcripts into ChatGPT so that ChatGPT has more context about what I'm doing. I think this is a very natural next step for them. Many people will just do this. If it's built into the plan, then it obsoletes multiple of these companies that this is what they do, but not natively. So very interesting.
Look, I think that in general, OpenAI has a lot of features that are specific to use cases in user flows, use case flows that are in ChatGPT, but they can be features on their own. Transcription is the easiest example for this.
Yep.
Transcription is really good. And multiple times I found myself open ChatGPT, transcribe, and that's copy the transcription to work on it somewhere else.
Yep.
And I think what is happening now is OpenAI slowly integrating deeper all the features of ChatGPT to multiple different platforms, simply because their capacity is huge at the moment. Everything they do is at huge scale. It's not that easy to just move or extend features. Even if you have them, you have the models, you have the endpoints, everything. It's not that easy to offer recordings and transcription to 400 million people every week. It's a lot. It's a very hard thing to do. It's a huge engineering effort. So this is what we see now, I think, with everything we already have. All of a sudden, we already have it also in the app, also in the web. I think that this is the move OpenAI is taking at the moment. They're all over the place. They're releasing codecs. They are doing this. They are releasing codec CLI and now a new model, an O3 Pro. They're all over the place. They're good, pretty much.
They're doing good. I will say this one last thing, and we're at an hour, so we'll move to this week's buzz in a second before we have an interview soon. What was I about to say? I get disconnected. I will say, this feature specifically is focused on kind of enterprise folks. I think it started with enterprise and then rolled out to everybody else. For many people, the consideration of whether or not to use this AI versus that AI boils down to which additional services you have. If ChatGPT has your memories and now your meetings transcribed while also transcribing your meetings, that's just another mode for OpenAI for you to not give up their service. And I think it's very interesting that OpenAI steps into this. Sam Altman went on multiple podcasts. One of them is with Jack Altman, his brother. And there was a clip that I saw super quick that he actually talked about OpenAI's ability to maybe do self-driving in the future. I was like, I raised my eyebrow because that's not an area that the OpenAI has explored so far. Definitely, there's a rivalry between XAI and OpenAI, etc., with Elon co-founding, etc., the lawsuit. It was very interesting that Sam Altman just threw it out there. At some point, we may have an ability to do self-driving that's not robotic. And I was like, that's very interesting. There's a lot of talent in OpenAI. We'll talk about that talent. Some of it is leaving after this week's buzz, but definitely stay tuned because we have an update, the Zuck update in a second. What's about in CoreWeave. Folks, usually this corner is called This Week's Buzz. I let my co-host get a little break. However, if you want to stay and talk to us about this, could be interesting because the updates here are new and exciting since CoreWeave has acquired Weights and Biases a few months back and became public. We cannot officially comment on any CoreWeave public stuff. By the way, this is like all opinions. However, some launches has happened. And yesterday in Fully Connected, we launched a few things, including some related to CoreWeave GPUs right now. Alrighty, folks. My name is Alex Volkov, and as the title says, I'm an AI evangelist with weights and biases. This week's Buzz is a specific corner where I cover everything that happens in weights and biases, whether or not it's new events that we're going to or different topics that we cover. This week, I have a lot to tell you because this week, just yesterday, our premier conference called Fully Connected that hosted, I believe, 1,700 people. I think we overshot the registration numbers significantly, was a huge success. And it included a few updates, a few announcements that we did because since the point where we got integrated into CoreWeave, we started working and decided, okay, what can we do within the next few months since the acquisition until the Fully Connected conference? We actually announced like 3 things. I want to talk to you about 2 of them. And I think it's very important to maybe highlight for folks who are listening that CoreWeave is one of the top, what they call neo clouds, like the newer GPU clouds, the only one who got the platinum tier and the semi-analysis GPU cloud ranking thing from Dylan Patel. They obviously have a lot of GPUs, and we at Weights and Biases were GPU less, let's say, and now we're bringing those 2 things together. And here's basically the number 1 thing that I want to talk to you about. If you go to your Weights and Biases sidebar, and you can see my sidebar here on the screen, there's now a new tab here called Inference. Inference within Weights and Biases, that's new for many folks. And we now have multiple open source models that I'm going to show you that you can run inference on, and including pricing. So we now support via Weights and Biases, via CoreWeave, so backed by CoreWeave GPUs. We have Llama 3.1 and 3.3. We have even Llama 4 Scout with Vision. We support DeepSeek V3 and DeepSeek R1 and 5.4 Mini. We're launching an inference service in preview, and pricing is very competitive. And we highlight the token structure as well. This is hosted on CoreWeave CPUs directly from Weights and Biases. We also give credits to folks. So whatever tier you're on, including the free tier, you now have free inference to some extent on these models. We would love to invite you to try them out. You can either try it in our playground, which I'll show you in a second, or via an OpenAI compatible API. So all you need to do is specify your authentication API key and a different base URL. And then you can just drop in, replace this, and give it a try. If you want to just play around with this, we have our playground that I showed you before. Our playground is basically a very simple way to compare between models. So you can grab this DeepSeek and then add the other DeepSeek V3 and ask our ICE Cube question. You can see the comparison between the 2 models. Obviously, all of this happens within Weave, the Weights and Biases tracing and observability platform. So everything that happens here, you can actually go and see the traces for and compare them. I think both these models now get the question correct, as we see tokens printing like super fast. I think at some point we'll also show you the tokens per second. So this is number 1, the inference service. It's in beta. Folks would love some feedback. That's why we gave a bunch of folks like free compute. Would love some feedback to see what's going on here. The next thing that I want to
Can we recommend models or request models?
I know it's Weights and Biases, but it's interesting.
All right, folks, let's go. Questions. As much as I can, I'll answer.
Wolfram, go.
So is there a way to request models? And if enough customers or users request it, it gets added? Or what's the process, the plan?
That's a great question. I believe they looked at some usage metrics. I recommended Open Router, for example, also as a usage metric that kind of like a good guesstimate of where we can get models. But I'm definitely going to be a conduit here to the team that works on this. This is the Weave team. If any interesting models that come our way, for example, the M1 could be interesting. I did check for us because I knew you guys are going to ask this. Yeah, before before you ask, maybe I'll say, I did go and ask whether or not the R1 is full weights or quantized. And we're serving, yes, I knew that this question is going to come up. And I have a confirmation from the team that we're serving the full R1 and the full V3 unquantized versions. We're serving them with a very good throughput as well.
So basically, what we can do with this, if I understand everything correctly, the entire platform, we can, for example, train our models and then compare them to the models that you provide here, like head to head, like compare. Yeah. We can use this for evaluation of direct evaluation against models. That's very useful.
Yeah, and obviously we show you like the whole kind of like weave tracing and how many tokens this cost and cost tracking as well. So this is like within the weights and biases model, and so you don't have to send your tokens elsewhere.
If you're using the API, can you then also see the traces, so you don't even have to set anything up?
No, I don't believe that. You'll still have to set up Weave. We don't want to just take over and send your traces without you knowing about this, right? So you'll have to mention a project, because then we need to attach, I believe, the billing to a project. So you do mention the project in the API. That's the only thing that was interesting to me that's new. In OpenAI, you don't mention projects. You mention the base URL and the API key. We also ask you to mention the project. I think that's specifically for tracking, because multiple people belong to multiple projects. But no, we don't auto trace for you. I think people want to know if they're sending their traces to some specific area.
I hope it's fully compatible, because if you have the project, which is not part of the usual OpenAI API, that could be an issue with some inference thing. So it would be cool if the API key itself could be tied to a project. Just what I'm thinking about right now.
Any problem? You just add kind of keys to this. At least in the Python, you add keys. nothing complains.
Can we run custom benchmark code on that? Because, for example, for the latest OpenAI Health Bench, we had to do some custom coding for the LLM as a judge benchmark, and it needs its own, because a particular judge has to look at the rubric. Can we run like custom benchmark code, and can that list go out to another API, or like what are the limitations around that for the judge, for example?
So I'll show you what's going on with the like live monitor. But yeah, you can run anything you want. This is like OpenAI compatible API. You can, besides the kind of the limits, fully OpenAI compatible, whatever code you throw at OpenAI, you can do. The second thing, and Nista, I do have a very interesting thing at the end that we just announced that we will launch at some point. It wasn't launched. This you can go right now. Inference endpoints is already available for your weights and biases. I'm very excited about this, folks. We're doing inference right now. GPU rich, yeah, let's go. This is super cool. I'm very excited to bring you this, and you guys could definitely give it a try. The second thing that we've announced, which is super cool.
Say that I don't know the roadmap of weights and biases, but it clearly goes to, we provide the compute, you can just specify your model, we do all the evaluation for you, and it's really exciting and really useful. Like the way it looks from where I see it, it looks like it's going to a very useful place. And just what Nistan said is pretty much the next step. So I don't know if people inside weights and biases might want to know. So Alex, please do tell them. Providing full service for evaluation of models, like you provide the entire your eval, and you guys just run the eval for us with the compute and everything, is extremely useful. And I think many people would, including myself, would have loved to use such service. So really exciting, seriously.
I appreciate it. Yeah,
I see the integration now. At the beginning, I was a little bit perplexed. What do they have to do with one another? CoreWeave and weights and biases, but I see how it integrates pretty naturally.
So
now,
here's how the marketing team like treats this. We now offer metal to token observability. So we help you observe every step of the training process, from the metal and the GPU is used. Symbiosis is now integrated into the mission control, cluster health monitoring, like all of this that you can see with CoreWeave. This is for the enterprises that use these huge scales for training. But also the platform now offers observability across all the layers of the stack, from the metal and hardware, then the model training, and now obviously the use from tokens as well. That's super cool. This is the vision. And it's great that like folks are seeing this. The second thing that I really want to talk about like super quick is, if you folks know that I'm very excited about evaluation specifically, like we obviously do vibe evals here on ThursdAI for a long time, and we tell you about which models we think is best, etc. This is like what weights and biases Weave does. When you're running an application on production, the MMLU and GPQA score of the new model doesn't mean squat to you. You need your own evals. We've been talking about this multiple times. Hamel, Hussein, and Shreya Shankar were on here. They just thought the most famous Maven course and like the #1 Maven course on evaluation. Everywhere we go, AI Engineer or FullyConnected or different AI conferences, evaluation is what separates the men from the boys, if you will, in who puts up great AI. We're going to talk about evaluation very soon after this as well. Evaluation is what's missing for many companies to put their app on production and do changes to it reliably. And I'm very excited about evaluation. What I'm super excited about is, so far, Weights and Biases, we could do offline evaluations for you, right? We would show you basically if you run those evals on whatever model you want. If, let's say, the new Gemini Flash that came out that we just talked about, right? If you want to run evals, your own evals on it, you'll have your own code, you will run it offline, you will make a decision. When I teach evaluations in workshops, I teach about 3 types of evaluation. One of them is offline that you have to run. The second one is guardrails, which we help you with, but we still don't run at some point. Maybe we'll get there as well. Guardrails are preventative evaluations. They basically deny output or input. If your customers or your model sends something that you don't want, guardrails will quickly evaluate this and basically deny output. But the third one is monitoring for continuous drops in performance. This is what we call online evaluations. This is a company like us or somebody else runs the LLM as a judge that you want on some subset, or if you can afford it, 100% of your traces, but you probably shouldn't run this on 100%, but definitely some subset of calls on production. And basically you need a company that does this for you. I'm very excited. This came from my team at Weights and Biases, the Weave team, to announce that we now support online evals, online evaluations via Monitor. So I want to show you super quickly how this looks. If you go to your Weave dashboard now, you can have, there's a new tab here called Monitors, and I can show you super quick how to set up this monitor. In this case, we use LLM as a judge, as a scorer. So basically what this means, very quickly and very simply, is that we will run your LLM as a judge for you. Because we've connected to whatever keys that you want, including the new inference that I just told you about, right? So you can run a whole loop within Weights and Biases now. You can have our inference service run the LLM as a judge for you. You can provide your OpenAI, Anthropic, or other provider keys like Azure, Bedrock, or XAI, and we will basically do the LLM as a judge call for you. So let's select, in this case, let's say WB Inference. Let's have a Phi Mini judge, for example. You give this judge a system prompt. You're a judge. You're an impartial judge, your task is to evaluate truthful. And then you have a scoring prompt. This is basically what LLM as a judge is. It's a prompt that you provide inputs and outputs and you say, hey, based on this criteria, judge this thing, right? After you create this, you go to the actual table of calls from production and you'll start seeing on the call itself the judgment, whether or not this passed or failed your judge, including the reasoning of why. This is incredible because setting up offline evals takes way longer than this. So I'm very excited about this feature. Definitely folks who want to give this a try, please let me know how this works for you, the limitations. We want to make this as best as possible for you.
So this is really an evaluation that is happening on the live production call.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So you have an agent running or something and you do offline evals, but you want to make sure that the degradation doesn't happen. So you run on a subset on production like a LLM as a judge to know what happens. All right, folks, this has been this week's Buzz. This is an announcement. The thing that Yam just mentioned, by the way, they didn't launch. It was only announced on stage. We will soon launch an evaluation service that you'd be able to send your API that supports the OpenAI API or your model that you've trained, and we will run a bunch of evals for you on this service. That's something that
Seen this idea on X this week. Someone asked why there isn't a platform that is doing exactly this, and just make it. People would be happy to charge a little bit extra for the tokens. People would be happy to pay. So I'm glad that you guys are working on it.
Yeah. So this is launch very soon. It's very
Mm-hmm.
useful for us as well. Here, we'd be able to run the light version, for example, so super quick because the API is compatible. So we'll definitely give you more updates about this. If that's interests you, please reach out to me. All right, folks, this has been this week's Buzz. Let's move on with our show. Alrighty, we are back and we now have a new guest on the show. I'm very excited to introduce Pankaj Gupta. from YUP.AI, a new guest to talk to us about also evaluations, by the way, and the different things. Pankaj, this is your first time on the podcast. Welcome. We got connected last week and you showed me some stuff that you were about to release, then you released them. We tried to get you on Thursday, but I think you delayed the release a little bit because that's how companies go. So very happy that you're here with us. Please feel free to introduce yourself to folks, maybe some background of yours, and then we're going to talk about Yupp.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. Can you see and hear me fine?
Yeah, you're coming through a line.
Okay. My name is Pankaj. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a startup called Yupp. Indeed, that's the name, YUPP.AI. We just got out of stealth and announced our product and funding last Friday. That's why we couldn't make it last Thursday. My background is in building both startups as well as being in big tech. I was a very early employee at Twitter, where I built Twitter recommendations. My co-founder built Twitter search. This is like the prehistoric era of Twitter, 2009. Since then, I have been at Google, leading Google Pay, different apps, and Chrome autofill, and then at Coinbase, leading consumer. So my background is consumer. My co-founder's background is AI. What Yupp.AI is, it's a consumer AI product masquerading as an LLM evaluation product. And let me take that step by step. What I mean by that is, first, it's a consumer product. That is our focus. That is in our DNA. If you go on Yupp's homepage, you will see it says over 500 models. It is all in one place. It is all for free. You get 5,000 credits. And actually, we'll make a separate link for the listeners of this show so that you can get more if you're listening to this pod, and send it to you, Alex. Now, second thing which you will find is that the UI is very different. When you put a prompt, while it looks like a chatbot on the homepage, you can either pick up to 4 models of your choice. So you can pick even the really powerful models like Claude Opus 4 or GPT 4.5. Even all these models are available to you for free. You can either pick them or you can let Yupp pick them. Yupp, we have built a router. This router model is like a search engine. It will rank all the AIs that we have in order of the best for the prompt that you have put in. We will show you 2. So now you can see that there are 2 of them. They are 2 side by side on the desktop. On mobile, there's a different UI treatment, which is mobile friendly. And once you see 2, you will also see show more. It's like the next page of search results. And so you can click and see more and more. So you can see all these AIs. So that's the UI kind of treatment. The third thing, which is what relates to evaluations, is this I prefer this button that you see there. So as you clicked, I prefer this just now, it actually asked you, why did you like this? Why did you not like this? The attempt here is, again, to make it feel fun. Now, when you do provide that feedback, 3 things happen. 1, it tailors the search engine, the router. Second, you get more credits. So just like you're showing, you got 55 more credits. And that is the engine that will allow you to use Yupp for free, basically forever. Because while you use up credits for a prompt, you also get more credits. And the third thing is this allows Yupp to collect human preference feedback for both RLHF and model evaluations. So let me go back to now evaluations. As we all know, there's static benchmarks and then there is human eval. Let me not repeat the same things. I'm sure the listeners know about all the pros and cons of static benchmarks. But what I want to spend a little bit of time on is crowdsourced evaluations, on human evaluations. That, I think, less has been said about that. It is only now that the AI community is now coming to, hey, what are the pros? What are the cons? What are the pitfalls? Even though crowdsourced human evals have been around for 20 years. As I mentioned to you, me, my co-founder, we were very early at Twitter. When we were building Twitter search and Twitter recommendations, these were all ML-based products. Yep. We went to Mechanical Turk to get our ML models evaluated at that time. We also went to some companies, I forget the name, Crowdflower was another company. There were some crowdsourcing companies even at that time. But the best way to get these models evaluated was to put in hands of millions of users, hundreds of millions of users.
Yep.
And they would check, we would do various A/B tests, both pre-launch as well as post-launch, and just check how users are using it in their daily lives. For model evaluations, in the age of LLMs, this problem has gotten even more interesting and challenging.
Yep.
Why? Because LLMs are now much more general purpose than any ML was earlier. If these models are general purpose, they're powerful, they're strong for a variety of use cases, you need a variety of use cases to test them.
Yep.
And
that's, I will say, just Pankaj, this is basically also something that we offer here on ThursdAI every week. Like, we have Wolfram, that's how we found Wolfram. Wolfram did these evaluations on Reddit. We read the Twitter feed of every model that comes out. We'll try to get the vibe. We're playing around with these models ourselves. And for many folks, when they tune into ThursdAI, that's what they expect as well. And I think it's very important what you're saying, because we, for the longest time, we looked and said, hey, the GPQA doesn't mean that this model is better than this one. Like, this one writes better. There's like a lot of uncaptured kind of understanding of which model is which based on just basically using them.
100%. And that's what we wanted to do. Playgrounds, dev playgrounds exist already in AWS, OpenAI, no matter which, but those are very developer-like. We wanted to take that to a consumer kind of presence. You mentioned vibes. In fact, that's the other thing we launched. It's still in beta. We launched a leaderboard and we launched a vibe score of each model. And that is what we think it is. What is the vibe? So you can go there. You were presenting just now, Alex. If you go to the left, you will see below the chat a leaderboard icon.
Yes.
This looks classic, like artificial analysis and any other kind of leaderboard. You can also go up and explore the whole table of all the models. This is still in beta. It's still getting stabilized as we are getting. So that's why we have put a disclaimer to not make any production model decisions.
Yeah, I saw this disclaimer. I will say, for folks who are just listening, what we're looking at is a very fleshed out, very nice UI comparison of basically all the models that you guys serve, and there's a lot of models. When I was playing with them, I saw Magistral. Magistral is a model that we talked about last week. Magistral already is included in your evaluations. You guys are doing very fast by adding models as well.
Absolutely. If I can point you to top right, there is a button called filters.
Yep.
And there is let me explain this a little bit more. Now imagine global users using this product for their natural use cases, because they are just coming here just to check out the AIs, just to use the AIs. And that will allow us to provide very fine-grained slicing and dicing of these rankings. Because let's face it, whether ChatGPT is above Gemini and whether it flips when they announce a new model is only of that much value. What is of value to you, hopefully, and to the developers is these fine-grained things. For example, and we mentioned this in our launch blog post for this, we saw that young people seem to like DeepSeek a lot more than the general population. And where do we get this information? Because we made a consumer product. On the consumer product, we encourage people to make a profile. And we gamify it, we make it interesting. The idea here is to provide, again, using the power of large scale, to be able to slice and dice into this. And if you don't want to do any of this, you can go and check it out for your own prompts and see what models you like, what models you may not like. This is still in beta because we just launched. We are just collecting our votes and we will go from there. We are asking, I think and this is again something that we have published where we want to really go deep into these fundamental questions that, hey, if we are producing this ranking across models, is it fair? Is it transparent? Is it credibly neutral? One of the things we announced in the spirit of fairness and transparency and equitable access is what we would like is for every graduate student in a dorm to be able to submit a model here. And we call that permissionless model submission. And that is just not possible anywhere. As a graduate student myself, I cannot do contracts with these big companies, which will take me 3 months and millions of dollars to get any human eval. So I resort to static benchmarks, right? But we have announced that we would allow folks to submit a model and our router will manage how much exposure we give and give results back. So that is just an example of where we are going from there.
So I want to recap for folks, because what's happening here is very interesting. And the reason why, Pankaj, I agreed to have you on in a completely unsponsored way, by the way, is because I found this open area of evaluations very valuable. We looked at LM Arena. We always update when a new model comes out. They say, hey, this is the model on evals, but also on human testing and pairwise comparison, for example. Folks look at LM Arena for a while, but then there was a few misunderstandings of why and how they're doing this. I found the fact that this is gamified in a consumer product very interesting, because as folks just saw, I was able to go provide the prompt, have the top models for free. Many folks who don't pay for OpenAI's O3, for example, they aren't able. I believe that you have O3 Pro as well. Is that correct?
Yes, we have O3 Pro for GPT 4.5, Gemini.
And many folks don't, a Claude Opus 4, for example, they don't pay for the consumer version, and you can pay for the API keys. Many folks don't get access to these models if they decide iOS or Android. If they go with ChatGPT, they go with ChatGPT. They pay the $20 a month.
Models which are on fast specialized hardware like Sambanova, Cerebrus, Grok. You can just go test them as a consumer if you wanted to.
Yep, that's incredible. And but the thing is that I notice is that I can now use these models for free, but also I get awarded by giving you the opinion of which one was better for me. I haven't seen this awards system anywhere else before. I get something while returning something back. Obviously, it should be clear for folks, they're using this model, they're using this service, they are also providing you with data. But the fact that you guys are open in the leaderboard, I think is the most interesting part to me. For folks who are just listening to us, just the slicing and dicing of this leaderboard is incredible. You can do model families, so you can do all the GPT models, for example, or you can pair GPTs only to Anthropics, for example. But also the type of models that you have here, many folks don't even know about. Tulu from LNAI, we had LNAI on the podcast. Tulu models are great for some specific things. So you can combine the model types to the tasks as well. So with these conversations, you categorize them by facts and information, for example, and you see how many conversations. And you guys just launched, you already have 400,000 conversations for fact and information. This is crazy, right? And I think this is going to be very important, because the categories are, like you said, what people want to compare based on. Like we just said, for example, in the beginning, before you joined the show, there's a new model, and that model is specifically for coding. And that model is not great for writing, for example. We had to have somebody from the community chime in for us with this. But it's great to have a backing to say, okay, this model is specializing for this. The thing that I want to also show to highlight, Pankaj, this is something I got very excited about. When you hit some models, I want to find this. It says it's better at something, and then says because. So you see examples of, let's say, Claude Opus 4, for example, and you go, there's a card for Claude Opus 4, and user preferences, it says, in 1.3 thousand comparisons with this model was preferred, people say it's on target and fast and style, they prefer the style of it. So you basically suggest to folks how to give you feedback about the model based on text, but also it's better because it's writing better, or because it's faster. And when you, as myself, somebody who judges models and looks at this, when I read this, it's very clear to understand why people chose this versus that. I really think that the Eval UI here is the highlight of what I wanted to bring to the show, and for folks to go and actually try this. Because again, like we saw Opus, for example, it's ranking 51 on speed on your platform. This is all based on users, right? You don't have any kind of held back evals or anything like that.
Nothing. All based on users all over the world. We are just getting started, of course. We launched less than 6 days ago, so the leaderboard is still stabilizing. We are excited to present this and get this out of beta when we are ready. So look out for that launch announcement. Meanwhile, our consumer product is off to, let's just say, a strong start.
A very strong start. Pankaj, thank you so much for coming up.
I have a question on an idea, because it has two values I see here. For one, there's a new leaderboard in town where we can see pretty global view on the models. We can filter a lot. That is an interesting information. But if we are using this platform and are rating all the models, what would be also interesting is my personal leaderboard, because it's nice to see what the majority is voting for, but maybe I have specific tastes. And since you collect this information, if there was a personal leaderboard that shows me where I rated the models and how they, that would also be a very interesting thing to me as a user.
Thank you, Wolfram. Perfect. We are just experimenting with that. If you go in the product and you click on your profile, you will see that you often prefer this model, and it will automatically look, but it's not really a personal leaderboard the way that you are saying. So we will definitely look into that. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I will say this last thing, Pankaj, before you leave. There is also an aspect of the financial thing here for folks who will use this model. They will also be able to cash out. This is not like just credits within your system to use on other credits as well. There's a whole secondary aspect of this that folks can actually like make money, refer friends, make money by. I find it very incredible too. This is an attempt. I'm really hoping that some folks will try to figure out a way to game those systems, as always with financial gains. So really hoping that you have your eye on this and to make sure that we get the signal, but not necessarily the hype that goes with everything that's cash-based. Listeners of ThursdAI will give you a promo code to join YUP.AI and start using models for free, but also give a little bit back to the community so that evals will stabilize. And then we'll also report on when the new model stabilizes. We'll definitely talk about this on the show as well.
100%. Thank you. Just one last thing is about privacy. This is about your data. And this we make it clear as you go through onboarding. All your prompts are private. There is actually a toggle there. You can choose to make it public. And how can we do that? Because for leaderboards and rankings, you don't need the prompts to be public. You just need analytics style. And that is just one more thing in our pursuit of making a great consumer product, because we believe that it all starts from there. Natural use cases, multiple languages, all over the world, different age groups, all of that comes from our experience being at Twitter and other consumer players.
I will also say experience and also the backing that you guys have is very impressive. Like multiple folks backed you. Like we got connected from Josh Woodward, who runs AI at Google now, like the Gemini product. I believe that some very prominent folks are backing this with some maybe suggestions and like ideation. So like very solid start. New leaderboard in town. We're very happy to have you on, Pankaj from YUP.AI. Folks, please go and try this product. We'll send you the code in the newsletter as well. And Pankaj, we expect you here back to talk about when new models change the game and when there's a disagreement between the multiple platforms. We would love to dive in and understand why this model takes over the other model, for example. Right now, it's not stabilized, but Claude Opus 4 is the overall leader, for example. But we'll see how that changes. Pankaj, thank you so much for coming up. We'll continue with our show, but definitely folks should try YUP.AI.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, folks, you heard it here first, a new leaderboard in town, and we had the CEO and the co-founder of it on the show. We will be giving you updates. We'll look at Reddit, we'll look at Twitter, we'll look at LM Arena, we'll look at the different scale AI stuff, held back evals, etc. But there's no comparison, like Pankaj said, for human-rated data. And so we'll definitely be very excited to see how this goes. As you saw, the platform launched last week. They already have 500,000 conversations in some conversation style. So very cool. And we're moving on because we have like around 10 minutes. We did not get to much of the stuff that we're going to get to, but let's try. This week was a very hot week for video models as well. I want to show you this new A16Z map that they've launched for text to video and image to video models. There's model companies, there's model apps, like we mentioned previously, and there's now talking avatars like area and lip sync area. We've mentioned all these three categories to you, and now it does seem like this is the shape of this universe. We'll just call out like the model companies like Veo from Google, Kling AI, and YUP.AI. Those are like maybe the top running video models. ByteDance just stepped in here. This map didn't update, but like ByteDance is definitely there with Seedream, the new one that we're going to talk to you about. In the talking avatars, we have Hydra and Heijen and Captions. This recently launched. We talked about Captions. Older players like Synesthesia, DID, and Dreamina also does this. In lip sync, there's like specific versions of apps that you provide a video that's existing and you provide a soundtrack and it will just match the lips, the SyncSo and Yapper and Vid.io. So we'll post this map of the universe on the newsletter. But speaking of this map, it's already outdated. This is how fast this field moves. It just launched today and they don't include these two. This week marked the very impressive jump over Veo 3. So we've been talking about Veo 3 since Google I.O. It's like the top video model. I think still is the top for multiple things, including audio. But for stuff that not includes audio, for just like visual, what text to image or text to video or image to video. This week we saw two models jump over Veo 3. Let's talk about two of them, ByteDance and Hylio02. Let's talk about ByteDance first. ByteDance, obviously the company behind TikTok, with a lot of data on videos to train on, just an incredible amount of video, launches Seedance 10 Mini. Seedance is their video model, and it jumps to number one on artificial analysis comparison. So artificial analysis does private benchmark, but also some stuff like Yupp just talked about, where people just select models. And if you go to artificial analysis, you can see the text to video generation models, and you can go to the leaderboard and see that Cdance is number one right now on top of VO3, both in text to video and image to video. This means they have an ELO score, so they basically compare these models. A significant improvement on top of VO. It's very unique to see. And you can try this model both on Thal and I think on Gemina.capcut.com. This is where ByteDance is allowing you access to their model. So you can go to video generator and generate these models with the new Cdance Mini. This is me just animated talking. So folks who are just listening, here's a image that I provided and asked to generate this person talking. It's animated. It's very cool. Like you can see the creases in my coat moving correctly. Very realistic model, and this is now the top number one.
It's just the mini version. What is on the leaderboard is without an add-on. It's a pro version, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I did this leaderboard. If you go to the leaderboard, you can rate stuff yourself, and I did it, so it's blind. And I picked it very often because it was really, it is above all the others. Vio has the advantage of audio,
Yes.
but this one, the prompt coherence, it's amazing. So I was just going through about 60, 70 videos, and the most preferred for me, that's why I was asking about the leaderboard just before, personal leaderboard, that was definitely also the Dream C full version.
C-Dream, yeah.
C2.
Yes. So this is like number one. And then
The
the
dance,
other,
so.
yeah, and the other major entry into the world of video generations is the MiniMax. MiniMax has, I don't remember a company besides maybe Google that the same week came into our updates and dropped like a very top reasoning model, but also the top video model. So congrats, Helio, for Helio 02. It's a 1080p native. So this model generates 1080p. Even VO doesn't generate 1080p. VO generates 720, and then you can upscale when you download. It has what they claim state-of-the-art instruction following, and it is quite incredible in instruction following. I've tried it, MiniMax Helio 02, and you benchmark in efficiency. You can provide multiple things that you want in the scene. It will just have all of them. But this, like really from the experience that I saw from folks on the platforms, this one is probably the best instruction following model. And they have like noise training efficiency they've talked about. They increase the training data set, and they support native 1080p at 6 seconds. So it's super cool. So shout out to folks. And I think the last entry, we're running through this because we don't have that much time. The last entry to the area of video models is Midjourney. Midjourney, famously for text-to-image and maybe image-to-image models with a very unique style. Many folks prefer Midjourney for a very unique style. They now launched a video model. It's I think less higher quality than some of the other ones, but the thing about Midjourney is that it preserves a lot of their own specific style of video. So many folks generate images with Midjourney, and then now they can animate this. They can be extended to 20-second total. I believe it's 480p, so not very high resolution, but many folks are Midjourney diehard fans, so they are very appreciative of the ability to generate model and then animate some stuff.
I haven't seen it here in Europe. Is it on the normal Midjourney page?
Yeah. I
Because
gotta
when
say, I don't
Create-
use or subscribe to Midjourney. I haven't seen the reason to with the open source models, but many folks are diehard fans of Midjourney and they want to talk about this. Moving on with a few minutes left to talk about this. Okay, all right. Last three things that I mentioned in the beginning that I hope that we're going to have time to talk about, but with the interview and some stuff we didn't really get to it. I just want to highlight those super quick before we drop. One, LLM flunk real-world coding contests, exposing a major skill gap. There's a paper on Archive that from Live Code Bench that they've created a new category of testing. Wolfram, we should talk about this. Let's have 5 more minutes for the show. It's fine.
Make a whole episode about
Yes.
just these parts.
We can make a whole episode of these three next things. One of them is Live Code Bench, which is a coding benchmark that we report and multiple companies report. All of the models that we have.
Quite a bit of scores on this category. Yeah.
Yes. All of the models. 04 Mini High, which is the best reasoning I think that we have right now. Gemini 2.5 Pro, 03 Mini, DeepSeek R1, all of them get 0. Just for comparison, 04 Mini High on the medium version of this model, of this benchmark, has 53% success. On the easy one has 83% success.
Can we see some questions? Like, what are the questions that none of them could get? Because that looks a little bit,
It looks crazy.
Everything zero is, it's hard to sell.
Would love to see the human scores in comparison.
I don't know how to like distill right now to the hard subset, but the data set of Live Code Bench Pro is on Hugging Face. I think this is it, the Pro one. It's on Hugging Face, so you can go and test it out as well. It's very interesting that this is what we're getting, because as always, these folks, they love new hills to climb. And so for folks at the big labs, when they see something that the model cannot do, even with any percentage, I don't remember this being the case. Even when HLE, like Humanities Last Exam, launched, or Frontier Math, another very like hard benchmark, we didn't see zero scores. Even for the top models, we see them maybe 5%. This is in the zero category. None of the models can complete. Recent reports claim the large language models now outperform elite humans in competitive programming, drawing on the knowledge from a group of medalists in international algorithmic contests. We revisit this claim, examining how LLMs differ from human experts and where limitations still remain. We introduced Live Code Bench Pro, a benchmark composed of problems for Codeforce's ICPAC and IOI, International Olympiad of Coding. They're continuously updated to reduce the likelihood of data contamination. A team of Olympiad medalists annotates every problem for algorithmic categories and conducts line-by-line analysis of failed model generation submissions. Using this new data, we find the frontier models still have significant limitations. Without external tools, the best model achieves 53% pass 1 on medium difficulty and 0% on hard problems. 0% on hard problems.
We got a test?
Yeah, we'll see. It says it may take a couple of minutes, but it basically stopped itself after 2 hours. It didn't press anything. So we did complete the test.
If we got a text until the end, it's impressive.
Yeah, we got AI Advanced Evaluation Platforms overview.
Wait, it's not just the text.
I don't think we have the actual text, do we?
It's formatted.
Yeah.
Wait.
We have action items and we have key points.
Okay, it's different. Alex, it's different than the actual, if you press the transcription button on the left.
Yeah, it is.
It's different because it's not formatting it.
Just to make sure the folks are still following us. Folks who are just listening, ChatGPT transcription just jumped at us, and I'm pressing the time steps. I'm assuming the whole transcription is here, but maybe the desktop app didn't update. Let me go and actually check this on production. But we've got a summary of the whole show. GPT. We got a summary of the whole ThursdAI show, including action. We have a summary, overall summary of ThursdAI. We have the key points, which we talked about: MiniMax, Google release, and then OpenAI. And then we're supposed to click the timestamps, and we actually see the whole transcript. Yes.
Whoa, wait! It's not just transcription; it's way more. Yeah. Alex, it's annotated. Who said what? Yeah. It's annotated by people. It's crazy. That's crazy useful.
It knows because we said who we are, right? I said I'm Alex Volkov, and it did W, and I go with V, so it doesn't see anything.
It knows because it's AI. It knows simply because it's AI, man. It's really smart.
Well, I didn't even say my name. I didn't even say my name is LDJ or Luigi. I think you called me LDJ.
I called you out, yeah.
Exactly.
And so,
man, that's crazy. Seriously, that's crazy. Yeah. OpenAI just launched a transcription service that apparently also annotate who said what with timestamps, and also gives you the entire thing summarized and formatted. That's crazy useful, and it allows you to do it for 2 hours straight transcription.
Yeah. I will say
that's crazy.
It's not fully perfect because it identified Pankaj, and I think he didn't come to the show up until an hour ago. So I think this is Nistan. So there's it does diarization, which is detecting who spoke when. It does it well, but I think it misidentifies, and that's why they say it's a research preview here.
Nothing is perfect, okay? We get it, but come on, that thing is useful.
Look, it says ask ChatGPT to edit.
I wonder if it will edit the transcription or the formatted part, because the formatted, I'm sure it's going to edit because it's the canvas thing. But let's see if it edits the transcription as well.
Yeah, so I asked ChatGPT. Pankaj joined only 1 hour later, and Nissan joined before. We'll see if it changes the.
Look, it edits the canvas.
I edit the canvas,
which is fine. But yeah.
So what we got is a full transcription with diarization, with name also. So it got
Man,
from the
wow,
context the
wow.
people who introduced themselves. That's crazy. Without connecting to the software or seeing or anything. And then we got an overall summary. And then we've got key points here. Person bias introduced an info service. Key points have a citing with the transcription timestamps that it got it from. And then also you have action items. Listeners and users, let's finish on this. Are encouraged to test the new open source models like MiniMax M1, provide feedback. Users invited to try YUP.AI platform using promo codes. Developers and enterprises explore weights and biases, inference, and online evaluation. This is the action items for you guys.
Absolutely.
I still see
it's only
some
on the app,
issues.
just to make sure it's only on the app, not on the web.
Yeah, only the app has access to your sound. So, folks, this has been ThursdAI. I think with this last piece of excitement, we didn't get to the point where I tell you about Andrei Karpathy's incredible talk. So you definitely will add this to the show notes. You should go and listen. Software 3.0, it's changing. We'll have writing software with English. We'll have a coupon code for you for YUP.AI as well. Definitely a very cool feature from OpenAI. And the last paper that we didn't cover is this MIT study of ChatGPT use causes sharp cognitive decline. It tested 54 people. It's very interesting to discuss. So we'll hopefully get to some point of discussion about this. And I think that this is it for the show, folks. Thank you so much for joining. If you missed, as always, on ThursdAI, if you missed any part of the show, I'm working really hard every week to bring you the show notes in the newsletter form. So you can subscribe to ThursdAI.news and we'll get you those by the end of today. So you don't have to keep notes or anything. We got you. Also, an edited version of this comes out as a podcast also on ThursdAI and every major podcasting platform. So if you missed any part of the show, you'll be able to review and rewatch those chapters there. You can jump to the chapters that you want. We try to bring you guests like Pankaj from Yupp. I feel like Yupp is going to be a big deal for testing models. I definitely go and test that out. Thank you so much for my co-hosts, Wolfram, Ravenwolf, LDJ, Jan Peleg, and Nisten, who joined and gave you guys some of their expertise. And thank you everybody who tunes in from week to week. I think it's incredible to do this with you guys and get live feedback while we run the show and have all of you tag us in different updates and tell us, hey, you didn't cover this topic. It's very important. Feedback is very welcome. Please keep sending this. And if it helped you in any way, share it with your friends. That's the best way to support the show. I will say I'm going to be on vacation. Wolfram is going to run the show. Other folks will join. I'm looking forward to tune in as a listener potentially for next week. Stick around for that next week and we'll see you here then. Bye-bye, everyone.